She came to Seoul with nothing but a dream and a voice that could change her life. Irene, a young African woman betrayed by her own family, crosses paths with Jun Pyo, the cold Korean billionaire who can make her a star. Two souls from different worlds, one love written under the Seoul sky. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notification bells as we dive into this roller coaster series.
A fox on the ridge, shadows at play, nine tails weaving through the break of day.
Irene busied herself as she moved about, trying to ensure that all the guests were well cared for. She had been working since morning to make sure everything was perfect. It was the 8th anniversary party of her father and stepmother. She wanted to be anywhere but there, but her father had warned that if she did not stay behind to take care of his guests, there would be dire consequences. As she moved around, serving the guests, they kept calling her here and there, and some even mistook her for the maid of the house. When she thought it was finally time for her to rest, her stepsister, Minji, came out dressed in a beautiful red Valentino gown. One would think that it was her anniversary party, judging by how much time she took to doll herself up. Once Minji was out, Irene began to hear different voices saying, "Wow, she looks like an angel. She's the daughter of Mr. Park. I heard she's a singer, one of the star girls. Have you seen her gown? It's from a top brand." As Irene listened to their different comments, she felt sick to the stomach and scoffed. Minji noticed the expression on her face and said, "Come over here, Irene," gesturing with her index finger. Irene ignored her, not wanting to move. However, one of the guests sitting close to where she stood said, "What sort of rude maid is this? Your boss is calling you, and you're still standing. Get moving." Irene glared at the woman, recognizing her as one of her stepmother's friends. Most of the women present fawned over her stepmother for benefits, and so Irene wasn't surprised. Not wanting to give Minji a reason to cause a scene, she walked up to her and said, "Yes, what is it?" "You're not doing your job," Minji said as she looked at her condescendingly. "I vividly remember Dad telling you that the condition upon which you can go to a music academy is to serve the guests here properly. Look, some tables are empty. What do you think you're doing? How would Mom and Dad feel if they see that their esteemed guests are being neglected?" "Well, the empty tables are that way because the guests said they don't want to have anything for now. Once they need something, I will serve it to them," Irene replied. After speaking, she turned her back on Minji and wanted to leave, but Minji held her by her ear and pulled her back. "Where do you think you're going? Stop being rude to me in front of the guests. Listen, my dad and my mom are having their anniversary party today, so I'm more or less the star of the show. I'll be performing a wonderful song for them, so you had better show me some respect." Irene slapped Minji's hand away and angrily looked at her. Some of the guests who were staring at both of them began to wonder what was going on. Seeing the way Irene was glaring at Minji, a guest said, "She is only a maid, yet she is so insolent and rude." At this point, Mr. and Mrs. Park came out. The moment Minji saw them, she walked up to them and smiled. "Wow! Mom, Dad, you both look so perfect." The guests began to lavish praises on Daeyoung and Hyejin Park as they were decked in custom-made Dior outfits. Some deliberately flattered them because Irene's father was very rich. He was the CEO of Baked Company, and he had many subsidiaries under him. They smiled at the guests, waving at them, and finally began walking to their seats. The MC was about to speak when Hyejin suddenly gasped, "Oh no, my bracelet. I can't find it. Irene, look for my bracelet. It seems to have fallen off." Mr. Park said, "Come on, forget about it. This is an important occasion." "No," Hyejin exclaimed. "It's the bracelet you gifted me during our last anniversary party, and it's worth millions of won. How can I just let it go?" The guests who were sitting began to gasp. "Wow, what an expensive bracelet," one of them exclaimed. "But I never take it off. I don't know what happened. Could someone have stolen it?" Hyejin wondered aloud. As she spoke, Hygiene turned to where Irene was standing and stared at her, asking, "Irene, did you take my bracelet?" All eyes turned to Irene, and she asked, "Why would you ask me that?" She walked closer, and her dad glared at her. "Lower your voice. Instead of looking for the stolen bracelet, you're here talking. Have you forgotten what your job is?" "I'm sorry," Irene replied. She turned back, intending to search for the bracelet, but Hygiene stopped her, saying, "Hold on, stop right there." Irene stopped and rolled her eyes, asking, "What now?" Hygiene walked up to her and said, "Let me search you. How do I know if you haven't stolen my bracelet? Nowadays, so many thieves do that. They bite the hands that feed them." All the guests continued watching as Hygiene put her hand into Irene's pocket. To everyone's surprise, she pulled out the bracelet. "What? You dare to steal from the hand that feeds you?" Hygiene asked, feigning disappointment. Irene stared at the bracelet in surprise. At that moment, she recalled when Minji had called her and pulled her aside. She realized that Minji must have put the bracelet in her pocket without her noticing. Irene turned, intending to point fingers at and expose Minji, but at that moment, Minji walked up to her and slapped her. "Enough of this, Irene. I've had enough of you. What do you think you're doing? Trying to ruin my parents' ceremony? Did we do wrong by taking you in? Did we do wrong by caring for you all these years?" Minji scolded. Irene stared at the three people in front of her as tears fell from her eyes. "I did not steal. I didn't take any jewelry," she defended herself. Someone from the audience suggested, "Why not call the police?" "I think you should call the police. Nowadays, some maids can't be trusted. You give them a roof over their heads, and they start stealing from you." "I'm not a maid," Irene screamed. However, her dad also walked up to her, turned her around, and slapped her face. "How dare you yell in front of me? Who do you think you're talking to? You want to insult my guests? I'm so ashamed of you. What was your plan? To pawn off this bracelet and make a lot of money? You know what? I've had enough. You have stolen and committed so many other crimes, and I have put up with it." "Well, not anymore," her dad said angrily. "What are you saying, Dad? How many times have I told you not to call me that today?" Daeyoung gritted. "It doesn't matter. You are accusing me in front of everyone," Irene replied boldly. "Accusing you? For crying out loud, the bracelet was found in your pocket. Why do you keep disgracing me every time, Irene? How many more chances will I give you?" "But I did not take it," Irene exclaimed. "Minji must have put it in my pocket." "Yes, Minji put the bracelet in my pocket." At this point, her father couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed her hand and forcefully began dragging her outside. "Where are you taking me, Dad? Let me go. Please let me go," Irene pleaded. When they got to the door, he said, "Henceforth, I cease to be your father. You've humiliated me severally, and I will not tolerate it anymore. Get out of here and never show your face in front of me again." After speaking, he pushed her out of the door. Irene couldn't believe what had happened. Everything seemed like a dream. She stood outside and stared at the heavy rain pouring down. She turned back, wanting to go inside, but at that moment, Minji appeared from inside, standing by the door. "What are you still doing here? Didn't you hear what my dad said?" "He said you should leave," Minji said. "Leave to where?" "This is my mother's house. Baekdu is my mom's company. Everything here belongs to my mom, so I'm not leaving," Irene insisted. The moment the words left her mouth, Minji pushed Irene so hard that she fell on her back and hit her head on the ground. She felt pain in the back of her head and cried out. The rain pelted her face mercilessly as she struggled to get up. Meanwhile, Minji went back in and locked the door. Irene got up with difficulty and knocked on the door, but no one answered. As she heard the laughter and sounds of merriment from inside, more tears streamed down her face. Her clothes were already wet and she felt cold at this point. She hadn't eaten anything all day, and it was already past lunchtime. She stood outside for more than an hour, and eventually, she turned and began walking away from the house, under the rain which showed no indication of stopping anytime soon. She kept walking without a destination in mind. She didn't have her phone with her or anything else that belonged to her. She didn't really have friends because Minji had turned them all against her. Even the boys she used to have crushes on had become her enemies. As she walked dejectedly on the road, Irene felt that living was too painful. Perhaps it was better for her to die. When her mom was alive, her life was perfect. Her dad adored her, and so did everyone else. But after her mom's death, her dad got married to Hygiene, and her life world suddenly went downhill. She became the Irene who was treated worse than a dog. She lost her will to live and kept walking aimlessly until she became dizzy. As thunder rumbled and the sky turned even darker, she stopped and looked up. Her body could not take it anymore, and as the world around her spun, she fell to the ground, and the last thought in her mind before she blacked out was that death should take her as well. Junpyo stepped out of his palatial villa, which was a stunning testament to his success and refined taste. Nestled in a picturesque location, Hanamdong Estate, Gangnam was one of the most luxurious estates in Seoul. His domestic staff lavished Junpyo with greetings, but he merely nodded curtly and approached his Bugatti without noticing that his housekeeper and chef were staring at him longingly through the windows. His chauffeur, Sang-woo, quickly ran and opened the back of his car, and after Junpyo sat down, Sang-woo got into the front and began driving to Junpyo Conglomerate. On his way to the company, Junpyo made a phone call to his assistant Ji-hoon and asked, "Are you at the office?" "Yes, sir," Ji-hoon replied. "Good," Junpyo said and hung up. The moment he stepped out of his car, he began to make his way into the iconic skyscraper building. The CEO's personal office was on the highest floor. It was the only office on that floor and the most spacious in the building, offering panoramic views of the city. Right from the door, his employees began to bow, greeting him with, "Good morning, sir." He barely said a word in reply as he went straight to the elevator and took it to the 30th floor. When he got to the top, his 3 secretaries, assistants, and 11 managers were waiting for him outside his office. They all greeted him, and he nodded curtly. Staring at Soo-jin, the most senior of his secretaries, he nodded and she quickly unlocked the door to his office before giving the keys to his assistant. "Let's go inside," Junpyo said to everyone, and they all walked in behind him. "Soo-jin, let me have the files," he said before taking his seat at the head of the table. She quickly picked up a laptop from one of the tables in the office and placed it in front of him, pointing at the necessary folders. He dismissed all his secretaries and said to all the managers, "Let's begin." One after the other, they began to give their different presentations while he stared at them with a scowl on his face, not pleased with what he was hearing. After they had all finished, he began to ask questions. "Yes, Mr. Kim, how far have you gone on the project with the Busan Council?" "Sir, Mr. Kim stammered. "Why are you stammering? This is exactly the type of attitude I do not want to see. Henceforth, you're dismissed. You can leave your resignation letter with the HR department." "Sir?" Mr. Kim wanted to argue. "Leave this place right this instant," Junpyo yelled. Mr. Kim got up and instantly left, and all the other board members were filled with more fear. "Yes, Mr. Choi, go ahead. What about the project I asked you to work on?" Mr. Choi got up and began to explain while shivering. "Let me see the file," Junpyo said. He took the file from Choi, flipped through the pages, and threw it back at him. "This is not satisfactory. What is going on here? You were all informed about this meeting 2 days ahead of time. I'm really disappointed." Angrily, he got up and began walking out of his office. "We'll have this meeting again tomorrow. Mr. Lee, reschedule and let me know about it." "Yes, sir," his senior manager replied. After speaking, he walked out of the room. Looking at his assistant who was standing by the door, he asked, "Ji-hoon, are the members for the Foreign Alliance ready?" "Yes," Ji-hoon replied. "Although I told them that you'll be having a meeting now, I can put a call across and make sure they are all available." "Do that on the way," he said and began to leave while Ji-hoon followed behind him. He spent the next few hours having different meetings until it was past his lunchtime. When he finally looked at the time, it was already past 2. He had more meetings to attend, but he was hungry, and to make it worse, it had been raining for so long. He walked out of the building, and when they got into his Bugatti, he instructed his driver, "Take me to my favorite hotel." Ji-hoon sat beside him in the car with a wet umbrella in his hand. When they arrived at the hotel, Junpyo came out, and from the door, all the staff began to greet him respectfully while he went in to take his seat. Junpyo was known as the King of Seoul, and one of the wealthiest men alive. Some said he was proud, arrogant, and even mean, but most people just described him as ruthless. He never gave second chances, and he hated people who tried to curry favor with him. Initially, there were scandals about him. Some claimed he was gay, others said he was married. At 32, he had not been seen with any woman. All the media houses that reported the news about his marital status and sex life were shut down on the same day, and ever since then, no one else dared to say anything wrong about him. He crossed his leg and waited for his meal to be served while his assistant stood by his side, staring at him. When he began to eat, he gave Ji-hoon the opportunity to also eat, but at a different table. When he was done eating, Junpyo got up and wanted to leave, but then the downpour became heavier. He cursed under his breath. "Today has been nothing but a terrible day." Staring at his assistant, he asked, "Ji-hoon, are elite buyers still waiting for me?" "Yes, sir," Ji-hoon replied. "I put a call across to them earlier to ensure they do not waste your time, and at this point, I'm sure they are already gathering. This is annoying. Okay, I guess I have to leave for the meeting. I hate being kept waiting, and I like to be punctual. Let's go." Ji-hoon quickly opened the umbrella in his hand and covered it over Junpyo's head. He led Junpyo into his car, and when they got in, the driver who had been waiting turned on the ignition and began to drive. Junpyo crossed his legs and ordered, "Drive slowly. You can see that the weather has gotten worse." The driver nodded, "Yes, sir," and began to drive more slowly. Picking up a magazine lying beside him on the seat, Junpyo began flipping through it, seeming amused by the entertainment news. He had always been interested in it for reasons best known to him. As he flipped through the pages, he soon became bored and dropped the magazine. He looked at the window, his eyes gazing through the glass. A memory flashed in his mind, but he quickly shook it off, not wanting to ruin his mood. However, right at that moment, he spotted someone on the ground, a girl. "Stop the car," he said. The driver immediately stopped the car and asked, "Is there a problem, sir?" Even his assistant, who sat beside him, became concerned. "Mr. Junpyo, is something wrong?" "Who's that girl?" he asked. They were all surprised as they followed the direction of his gaze. There lay a girl on the ground, her face as pale as a sheet. She was unconscious, and her complexion had changed due to the rain. Junpyo couldn't tell if she was dead or alive. She appeared very young, around 16 or 17, he guessed. He kept staring at her and wanted to leave at first, but then something tugged at his heartstrings. His assistant and driver were surprised because he never bothered about things or people like that. "I'm stepping out right now," he said, shocking them even more. His assistant quickly came out with an umbrella and ran to the other side, opening the door and holding the umbrella for him. Junpyo, who was 6 feet 2 inches tall, walked over to the girl and stared at her for a while. Finally, he said, "I want her to be taken to the hospital if she's still alive." His assistant stared at him in surprise. Junpyo wasn't known for being kind or helping strangers, but it wasn't in his place to question him. Seeing that his assistant was confused, Junpyo took the umbrella from him and said, "Right now, take her to the back if she's not dead." Ji-hoon checked her pulse and saw that she was still breathing. He lifted the unconscious girl from the ground. Her body was soaked with water, and he knew the seats would be soaked as well. He worried that Junpyo would complain and later blame him, but at this point, he could only follow instructions. He turned to the other side of the car and got in, sitting beside the girl, while Junpyo went to the front to sit beside the driver. Finally, they arrived at the hospital and Junpyo got out. He asked his assistant to take her out. Then he walked straight to his doctor, who was surprised to see him, and said, Mr. Junpyo, you should have told me you needed my services. You know I will come to you at any time. I know, Junpyo replied. But this was different. I need you to look after this girl. Something has happened to her. Just make sure she gets better and send me the bill. Okay, sir. Is she related to you? The doctor asked. No, she's more like a stray dog I picked up. I just want her to live, Junpyo said. After that, he turned and left, going back to his initially intended destination. The doctor quickly ordered his nurses and they rolled the girl, who had been placed on a stretcher, to a room and transferred her to a bed. He attended to her quickly. Since she had been brought by Junpyo, he knew her health was a priority. 2 hours later, Irene opened her eyes, blinking weakly. When she looked around, she realized she was in a hospital and sat upright. She recalled what had happened earlier in the day and wondered, "Am I dead?" When the doctor came in, he said, I see you're awake." She smiled. For a moment, I thought I was in heaven. The doctor laughed. Heaven? That's interesting. I remember passing out under the rain. How did I get here? Irene asked. Someone saved you and brought you here. The doctor replied. Someone saved me? This hospital looks quite expensive. Will the person be coming back? Irene asked. I don't think so. He just wanted you to live. The doctor replied. She nodded. Okay, can I speak to him? The doctor said, well, I don't know. It depends on him. I can put a call across, and if he's willing to speak to you, I'll let you know. Please put a call across. Thank you, she replied. The doctor thought about it for a while. He didn't want to offend Junpyo, but he decided to call him just to be sure of what he wanted. In her mind, Irene was thinking that if the person who saved her was a wealthy man, she would ask him to employ her. She wanted to live and fulfill her dreams. She had earlier made a mistake by giving up on life. She wanted to make something out of her life, and for that to happen, she needed to start from somewhere. At the moment, she did not have a roof over her head, and if this person could pass by without letting her die, it meant he could be kind enough to give her a job. She was ready to do anything decent as long as it gave her the opportunity to save up enough money and pursue her dreams. When the doctor called Junpyo, he was in the middle of a meeting. He looked at the call and answered it, saying, "This had better be important." "I'm sorry for disturbing you, Mr. Junpyo," the doctor said. "The girl you brought has gained consciousness, and she insists on speaking to you." "Speak to me? Didn't I ask you to just treat her and let her go?" "You did, but I wanted to find out if you would be willing to fulfill her request." Junpyo thought for a while and finally said, "All right, put her on the line." The doctor heaved a sigh of relief and handed the phone to Irene as he said, "Here, he wants to talk to you." "Thank you very much," she replied. Taking the phone to her ear, she said, "Hello." Junpyo replied, "Hello." "I'm sorry to trouble you, sir," Irene said. "Please, I want to ask for a favor." "What is it?" Junpyo asked. "I would like to see you, please." She replied. Junpyo stared at all the men who were sitting in front of him and said, "Okay, I'll be right there." Getting up, he continued, "I think we've pretty much said everything that needed to be said at this meeting. I approve of your findings, and now I need implementation and results. Excuse me." After leaving the meeting room, Junpyo said to Ji-hoon, "Let's go back to the hospital." His assistant was surprised. Junpyo wasn't acting like himself. No one knew why he was being so kind and accommodating towards this girl. When they arrived at the hospital, he went in to see her. The moment Junpyo entered the room, Irene jumped off the bed in surprise and stared at him as her hands began to tremble. She instantly recognized him, and who wouldn't? He was one of the wealthiest men in Seoul, and everyone said he was very ruthless. How could it be that this was the same man who saved her life? It was the first time she was seeing him in person, and she could not deny that he was strikingly handsome, with chiseled features and deep, captivating eyes. His impeccably styled hair and well-groomed appearance only added to his charm and allure. "Aye, aye, sir." She gulped. "Calm down and sit down. Are you feeling better?" "You still look weak," Junpyo said. Irene was even more surprised that he spoke kindly. She had heard about him a few times, even from her dad. Could it be that what people knew about him wasn't the truth? He sat beside her on the bed and said, "Yes, you wanted to see me. I wanted to thank you very much for saving my life." She found herself stuttering in the presence of such a powerful man. "You're welcome," Junpyo replied. "Now tell me, why would you lie on the ground under the rain?" "At the time, I guess I just gave up on life," she replied guiltily. "I see, so do you still want to die?" "Oh no, sir, far from it. I want to live," she said. He nodded. "Did you call me here just to say thank you?" She smiled and Junpyo found her smile very beautiful, but kept it to himself. "Yes, sir. And also I'm sorry. I didn't know that you were Mr. Junpyo," she added. He nodded again. "I see you know who I am. Okay, so go on. I'm listening." "Well, I wanted to ask if I can work for you, sir." "Work for me? As what?" Junpyo asked. "As one of your domestic staff, sir. I can do chores, and I can wash even your car. I can do any decent job just to survive." Junpyo regarded her for a while and asked, "Aren't you underage? You look 15 or thereabout." "No, sir, I'm 18 years old. I turned 18 more than 3 months ago," Junpyo said. Oh, lately, he had been thinking he had too many domestic staff and wanted to send a few away. He didn't need any more workers, but he couldn't bear to turn Irene away. After a while, he said, "I need to know who you are first, and why the hell you want a job in my house when you should be thinking about going to school or doing something more productive with your life." "My name is Irene," she began. "I was falsely accused by my dad, my stepmom, and my half-sister. They called me a thief and threw me out of the house. I had nowhere else to go, and that's how I ended up on the ground. I really want to make something out of my life. I just need a job and a roof over my head. And I am the only option you have," Junpyo asked. "No, the thing is, after looking at the hospital, I realized that whoever brought me here must be someone who has a lot of money. I just wanted to ask you to employ me so I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Gain some money and have a roof over my head." "All right then, I'll be back later, and then I'll tell you my decision," Junpyo said before walking out of the room. After he left, Irene heaved a sigh of relief. She had basically forced herself to say all the words she said to him. The last thing she had expected was to see that Junpyo was the one who saved her life. As he exited the hospital, Junpyo turned to his assistant. "I have no idea who that girl is, but if what she's telling me is true, get the information for me as soon as possible," Junpyo instructed. "I'll get right on it," his assistant replied. Junpyo drove back home to change his clothes while waiting for his assistant to get back to him. He already had a butler, a housekeeper, and her assistant, a chef who had 2 assistants, a gardener, and security guards. He thought about where to place Irene and finally came up with a good idea. As he reached the door, the butler welcomed him, taking his jacket and saying, "Sir, you're quite early. Are you still planning on going out?" "Yes, I am," he replied. The butler nodded and took the jacket inside while Junpyo entered the house, called all his staff, and said, "I suppose I need someone to clean the storeroom and assist in the kitchen." "Sir, we can do it. We're more than willing," the maids who worked with the chef chorused. "No, I have someone else in mind. She'll be joining you today. Treat her well," he instructed. "We will, sir," they replied. After speaking with them, he got up and received the information he had asked his assistant to gather. Just as Irene had said, her age, name, and the fact that she recently graduated from high school were all there. Looking at her family background, he discovered that her family was well off, with her millionaire father. He guessed that she must have had a difficult life, having lived with her stepmom. He came out of the house and drove back to the hospital. When he arrived, Irene was still sitting on the bed, waiting. She believed that Junpyo would come back just as he had said. When he finally arrived, he said, "Your story checked out." Thank you, sir," she said, flashing him a smile. For the second time, Junpyo found himself enchanted by her smile. He refused to dwell on it and said, "All right, come with me. You'll be given the job, just as you requested." "Thank you very much, sir," she said. After the doctor discharged her, she got into the car with Junpyo, and they went to his home. When Irene arrived at Junpyo's villa, she was in awe of the place. The villa was lined with meticulously manicured gardens and a majestic driveway adorned with fountains. It was a fusion of classical and modern architecture, creating a stunning visual spectacle. The facade was adorned with intricate stonework, ornate carvings, and large arched windows framed by rich draperies, allowing a glimpse of the grandeur inside. It seemed to have been constructed using the finest materials, combining marble, granite, and other precious stones to create an aura of timeless elegance. While she walked behind him and made it inside, she got carried away looking around. The interior was an awe-inspiring display of opulence and refinement. The expansive foyer had a sparkling chandelier hanging from a soaring ceiling. Elaborate frescoes and murals adorned the walls, depicting scenes from art, history, or nature, further enhancing the luxurious atmosphere. As she moved through the villa, she noticed a series of lavishly decorated living spaces. The formal living room featured plush, custom-designed furniture arranged around a fireplace, creating an inviting and cozy ambience. The dining room boasted a grand table that could seat a dozen guests comfortably, accompanied by intricately designed chairs and an eye-catching chandelier overhead. The villa also boasted of an impressive entertainment wing, complete with a home theater, a private library, and a billiards room. There was an indoor swimming pool and a spa area which Irene believed provided a relaxing retreat for residents and guests, with luxurious lounging spaces and elegant mosaic tiles surrounding the pool. She suddenly realized that everyone was staring at her as she had subconsciously walked away from everyone else while looking around the house. Junpyo was regarding her intently, and she soon became afraid, thinking she had done something wrong on her first day. However, Junpyo's expression softened and she heaved a sigh of relief. Everything happened so fast that Irene began to wonder if she was dreaming. Realizing she was not, she counted herself lucky that she wouldn't have to sleep under the bridge. Junpyo once again addressed all his staff, asking his butler to ensure that Irene understood her job description. As he turned to leave, Junpyo received a call from his best friend who asked, "What's going on? You've been keeping me waiting for far too long. I called you earlier, and you said there's a girl you're trying to help. How long is it supposed to take?" "I'll be right there," Junpyo replied. "Don't pressure me." "Sorry, boss," his friend Taeyong replied. Junpyo had his driver take him to the bar where his friend, Taeyong, was waiting with another mutual friend. As he sat down, Taeyong said, "In all honesty, I've been waiting all day for you to tell me about the girl you saved." "Why?" "There's nothing to tell," Junpyo said. "Oh, come on. Everyone knows that Junpyo is the ruthless CEO. You don't help people, you make them miserable," Taeyong teased. Junpyo laughed. "I can't believe this. Is that what you think of me?" "That's not what I think of you. Everyone in Seoul knows that you're ruthless, so I'm wondering what it is about this girl and why you had to go through the trouble of helping her," Taeyong explained. Junpyo smiled. "I guess I just felt sorry for her." "That's unlike you, Junpyo," Taeyong remarked. Junpyo smiled again. It was only around his best friend that he could usually smile and be himself. Their mutual friend, Minho, who sat with them, chimed in, saying, "I'm still finding it difficult to believe. Junpyo, you have to tell me why. You can't just say you felt sorry for her." "I think I know why," Taeyong replied. "Everything makes sense now." "You know why?" Minho asked. "Go ahead and tell me." "Don't try it," Junpyo warned. Taeyong laughed and continued. When Junpyo was younger, his father brought in another woman after his mom died, and she had a son. They made Junpyo's life miserable and starved him for 2 days. He left the house and became too weak, falling to the ground. He lay there as it rained, drenching his clothes. He was so close to dying. "I'm going to deal with you, Taeyong," Junpyo said to Taeyong, but he laughed and carried on. "So my dad and I were driving by, and we saw him. At the time, I was just 10. We were 10 years old, right?" Taeyong asked Junpyo. Junpyo sighed, giving in. "Yeah, we were 10 years old. So we took him to the hospital, and my dad took him in, and we became best friends," Taeyong explained. "Wow, that's some story," Minho said. "Yeah," Junpyo replied. "For some reason, when I saw that girl, I remembered myself back then. Taeyong, if your dad hadn't passed by and helped me, perhaps I wouldn't be where I am today. I guess that's why I lent a helping hand to her. I'm smart, that's why I figured it out." Taeyong bragged. "You know, for a minute when you said you saw her in the rain and chose to help her, I was thinking that maybe, just maybe, your heart fluttered when you saw her." "Don't say such rubbish," Junpyo replied. "Don't forget I'm 32 years old already. The girl in question is just 18. She's a child, for crying out loud. I was just helping her out, okay? And that's all there is." "Okay, no one is arguing," Taeyong replied. After drinking with his friends, Junpyo decided to go back. He had the urge to see how Irene was settling in. When he came into the house, however, he heard his housekeeper, Mi-sun, shouting at her. "Is this what you are? You know how to do nothing, and yet they brought you here to assist me. You're more of a burden. Get away from my sight." Irene, who was shocked by the way the housekeeper, who seemed to be in her 30s, spoke to her, turned and wanted to walk away from her. She had merely asked Mi-sun where the store was located, and the latter began yelling at her. "No one, except me, has the right to speak that way to my staff." Junpyo thundered as he stumbled on the scene. Both Mi-sun and Irene were surprised because they did not see him come in. "Listen, Mi-sun," Junpyo warned. "The only reason why I'm tolerating this is because it's your first time. The next time you raise your voice in my house or try to boss around my staff without my consent, consider yourself fired." "I'm sorry, sir." "I'm very sorry, sir," Mi-sun replied and scurried away. Irene stood where she was, her eyes becoming misty, while she fought so hard to control her emotions. Today is your first day. You can go into your room and rest," Junpyo said, pointing at Irene. She shook her head. "No, sir, I will work. You just came from the hospital. I'm giving you a day off. Go and rest. You can take the next few days to recover and start your work by next week." She looked at him and nodded. "Thank you, sir," before walking away. As she went into the room that had been given to her, Irene sat on the bed, looking at the room once more. It had been prepared for her, but she had nothing, no clothes and no shoes. She was afraid that if she asked Junpyo about it, he might become upset. Perhaps she could go back home and ask for her clothes. She decided that was what she was going to do. After staying in the room for a while, she felt bored and came out. As she entered the formal living room, she saw Junpyo sitting with a newspaper in his hand while the TV was on. There was a show going on and someone was singing. It was none other than her stepsister Minji, performing on stage. Irene balled her hands into fists, and tears began to fall from her eyes. At this point, Junpyo realized someone was standing behind him and turned. He saw the tears in Irene's eyes and was surprised. Before he could say a word to her, she ran back into her room. Junpyo shrugged and said, "Weird." Later in the evening, as he was going into his room, he heard someone singing. He stopped and listened. It was coming from Irene's bedroom. It was the sweetest voice he had ever heard. He stood by her door, listening as she sang, and could detect sadness in her voice. What? How could someone have such an amazing voice? He wondered. He pushed open the door to her bedroom and walked in. Irene, who was taken by surprise, instantly stopped singing, got up from the bed and stared at him. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, fearing his reaction. "No, go on. I want to listen," Junpyo replied. Irene sang for Junpyo while he stood in awe, mesmerized by her performance. As she sang, she became so immersed that she closed her eyes and continued to pour her heart out. Junpyo walked over to the bed, sat down, and kept his gaze fixed on her. When she finished singing, he exclaimed, "Wow, that was phenomenal." "Thank you, sir," Irene replied with a smile. "I'm curious, how did you become such a talented singer?" "Don't worry, you can share it with me," he added, noticing her hesitation. Irene sighed and began her story. "Well, my mom was a gifted singer from 2. When she was young, her dream was to become a pop artist, and her voice was perfect. However, her father, who was a billionaire, wanted her to take over the family business instead since she was his only child. She had to make a difficult choice between her passion and her responsibilities. Eventually, she took over my grandfather's company, Bloo Industries, but she never gave up singing. She recorded songs for herself, but never performed publicly. After marrying my dad and realizing that the business wasn't her true passion, she put him in charge and pursued singing in her free time. When she had me, she discovered that I also had a sweet voice, and she was thrilled by it. We used to sing together, and she promised that she would make me a big star someday. She wanted me to live her dream since she never had the chance to do so. However, when I was 10 years old, she fell ill and passed away. Irene's voice trembled with emotion as she continued. "My dad loved me too, or so I thought. But a few weeks after my mom's death, he came home with Hyejin, my stepmom. To my shock, he had been cheating on my mom while she was alive, and Hyejin's daughter, Minji, turned out to be his child. When she realized I loved singing, Minji became jealous of me and started singing as well. Her mom pushed her to compete with me, even though she couldn't sing as well as I could. She always claimed to be better than me. Whenever I received invitations to sing at birthday parties, not for money but for fun, she would make a fuss about it, and I would lose the opportunity. It became the norm for Minji to always get the best. She set me up so many times, planting my dad's and her mom's belongings among my things to make me appear guilty. Even when we attended the same high school, she would steal from people around me without my knowledge, and I would be blamed for it. Everyone turned against me, my life became miserable, and I lost all my friends. But I always held on to the hope that one day I would become a star and fulfill my dream of becoming a musician." Irene's voice quivered as she recalled her struggles. "Unfortunately, my dad eventually grew to despise me. When I finished high school, he refused to support my further education, despite it also being my mom's dream for me. I reminded him of her wishes, and he made a deal with me. He said if I served as a maid during his marriage anniversary, he would enroll me in a music academy to develop my singing skills and boost my career. I reluctantly agreed, knowing that his wife must have influenced his decision. I endured the humiliation of being called a maid, but I held on to hope. Then, as expected, Minji once again framed me by placing her mom's expensive bracelet worth millions in my pocket. I was falsely accused of theft, and this time my dad kicked me out of the house, warning me never to set foot near it again. What? Having experienced something similar, when I learned that you lived with your stepmom, I expected that you must have had some unpleasant experiences. But this is just what? Junpyo couldn't believe his ears. Irene smiled. The song my sister was singing earlier on the TV, I wrote it. What? Yeah, it is one of the songs I wrote a few years ago. I used to sing it back then, but Minji stole it. I was supposed to go for that audition a week ago, but thanks to her, I ended up not making it. She went instead with my song and got a spot to be among the star girls. The star girls? Junpyo asked. Yeah, they've been given the opportunity to showcase their talent. In the end, 1 or 2 of them will be picked and made into stars by their agency. That was my dream, but Minji stole it from me. Irene explained. Junpyo smiled. Wow, that's interesting. And to think that her voice is nothing to write home about. I mean, a lot of people sing like that. It's basic. On the contrary, your voice is unique. I've never heard anyone sing that way. Thank you very much, sir, Irene said. Just hearing you say this alone is amazing. Back then, when I would sing at home, my stepmom would say I was disturbing the peace of the neighborhood, and that my voice was awful, and she would shut me up. Meanwhile, Minji would always sing, and she would praise her and tell her that she had the best voice in the world. Junpyo scoffed. I'm going to ask you a question, Irene. Go ahead, sir, she replied. Do you want to be a star? Junpyo asked. Me? Irene thought she hadn't heard him well. Sir, are you asking me if I want to be a star? Yes, Junpyo said. I can make you a star, Irene. All you need to do is follow my rules. What are your rules, sir? She asked. Be obedient, hardworking, and focused. If you agree to these rules, I'll enroll you in the Seoul Royal Academy of Music. I will make you a star. Tears fell from Irene's eyes. She said, thank you very much, sir. She wanted to go on her knees, but Junpyo got up and said, no, don't do that. As he stood closer to her, she looked up at him. She was a tall girl, but in front of him, she became short. With his towering height and commanding presence, Irene couldn't make eye contact with him for long and quickly looked down. He said, those girls you mentioned, I know someone who might have an idea about them. And I also know that their performance is tonight. There's a show where they're supposed to perform. That's correct, sir, she replied. What do you say? Would you like to perform with them? He asked. Irene stared at him in surprise. Sir, but there are already 4 in number. Junpyo smiled. Give me a second. Taking out his phone, he called someone and said, there's a girl, someone close to me. I want her to be among the star girls who are performing in tonight's show. The person on the other end said, they are already complete, sir. I don't care. Either you take one of them out or you add her to the group. Junpyo said, we'll add her to the group, sir, the person replied. Good. Her name is Irene, and she has a unique voice. I'll be there as well to grace the occasion. You're coming, sir? The man asked, stammering. He was surprised. Of course I'm coming. When someone who belongs to me will be there, why wouldn't I? Irene felt as though everything happening in front of her was a figment of her imagination. When the call ended, Junpyo made another call and said, Yu-young, come to my villa right away. Your villa? Yu-young worked with the brand that delivered most of the clothes Junpyo wore. I'll be right there, sir, she said. In the next 20 minutes, Yu-young pulled up in front of the villa and hurried inside. It was the first time Junpyo had personally asked her to come to his villa. She met Junpyo, who was sitting across from a flabbergasted Irene. Take her shopping and get very good clothes for her, because in the next few weeks, she should be in the spotlight as a pop artist. Junpyo ordered the moment his eyes fell on Yu-young. Sure, I'll do that, sir. Yu-young replied without hesitation. Turning to look at Irene, Junpyo asked, Are you ready to perform tonight? Tonight? Of course, yes, sir. There are so many songs I've written over the years, and I have them all at my fingertips. I can sing even in my sleep. Irene replied excitedly. Junpyo laughed. Well, I love that. Get ready because you'll be performing tonight. Dear story lovers, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel and turn on your bells so you don't miss the next episode. Like and share to friends and family, and finally tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I'd love to connect with you. To my amazing subscribers, please know that I appreciate you and do not take you for granted, and I'll see you in my next episode.